This is IGN. Atsu's path of vengeance is paved with bloody samurai action and a more human story. This is your IGN review of Ghost of Yotei by Michael Higham. Sequels are opportunities to either build upon a predecessor and push boundaries, or refine what was already great and deliver that again with a stronger focus. With Ghost of Yotei, developer Sucker Punch leaned heavily into the latter approach, and the result is more captivating open-world action and unbelievably striking visuals at every turn. It doesn't try to revolutionize things, sticking pretty close to 2020's Ghost of Tsushima in general, but I don't necessarily mind when that means it can expand in aspects that matter and offer a tighter distillation of the samurai fantasy that was originally promised. Not many games in recent memory can hang their hat on having combat as fluid and satisfying as this, and it's packed into a revenge tale that makes for a more human story. Coming off of Tsushima, the novelty of imitating filmmaker Akira Kurosawa may have worn off a bit, but the cinematic stylings of his samurai classics still effectively seep into Ghost of Yotei's look and vibe. Whether it be the cinematography of cutscenes, the standoff before a duel, or the letterboxed framing of riding horseback across the gorgeous fields of Ezo, which is modern-day Hokkaido, home of Mount Yotei, it had me mashing the screenshot button and frequently pulling up photo mode, conveniently mapped to the D-pad. We've seen technically impressive worlds across Sony's other PS4 and PS5 games in recent years, but it's the artistic flourishes and intentional environment effects that elevate Ezo's lush plains, snow-covered mountains, and vibrant forests. It's a sort of biodiversity Tsushima didn't entirely have. The picturesque vistas and dense flower fields lend Yotei its own identity, but it's the new lead character, Atsu, who gives the wandering samurai tale a more enticing edge as well. It's a story far less concerned about the romanticized idea of the samurai and instead focuses on the lengths one would go to exact their justice. Tsushima's protagonist, Jin, was just fine for the purpose of its story, yet he wasn't a particularly interesting lead on his own. Moving to Atsu, who's fiery and brash, gives Yotei the kind of personality it needs. Actor Erika Ishii lends their likeness and voice to Atsu and brings something that's more rough around the edges for a more believable character, if you play with English audio. She's stubborn and has trouble seeing beyond bloodlust, sometimes frustratingly so, and the ways the world and people around her push back on her kept me curious enough to see things through. All of this revolves around a fairly by-the-numbers revenge plot, where Atsu seeks to take down the Yotei Six, led by an equally vengeful villain, Lord Saito. They're a group of outlaw samurai who killed her family when she was young along their path to becoming the de facto leaders of Ezo by force. If you played Assassin's Creed Shadows from earlier this year, you may notice Yotei closely mirrors the story of Naoe, one of its two protagonists. While they don't have much screen time and aren't really nuanced characters, they're easy to hate, making vengeance pretty sweet. In its roughly 30-hour journey, a large majority of the story unfolds in predictable fashion and gives you the runaround more often than I'd like. Multiple times, events build up to a big moment, only for the target to conveniently escape in a cutscene without much of the plot moving forward or evolving. That's not to say it doesn't have its moments, however. A couple of clever twists in a middle chapter show signs of brilliance, and some bittersweet scenes throughout had me emotionally invested in ways I didn't expect. Atsu has a few companions on her journey like Oyuki, who is one of the standouts, and adds a little depth with her wisdom and contrasting perspective on the revenge motif. So is Atsu's mom, who brings texture to Yotei's themes of music and family being tied together, as you see through childhood flashbacks that flesh out their past. But when it came time for Atsu to square up against one of her targets, I couldn't help but grin, sit forward for the fight, and sense that intensity of dealing a final blow. Although I wish it took more creative swings with its storytelling, it is a strong enough vehicle to carry you through what it does best. And what Ghost of Yotei does best is its combat. Very few open-world games compel me to clear out optional content across the map just for the sake of starting fights. Movement has an unmistakable fluidity, as does the flow of each attack, ability, and parry, yet each weapon carries a certain weight that makes landing hits and those impact frames so satisfying. Without a lock-on mechanic, encounters feel natural at the expense of frustrating mishaps with the targeting system. But because you're given so many tools, being able to weave them into your rotation or use them at opportune times keeps each fight consistently exciting. Like Tsushima, Yotei's map is built with a veneer of discoverability, finding ways to nudge you in certain directions without plastering waypoints or markers on screen. The wind navigation mechanic is back, where swiping up on the touchpad visualizes a wind gust toward your active objective. I also appreciate how songs Atsu learns on the shamisen that you can play at any moment to guide you to finding collectibles or hot springs to boost health create a little extra thematic coherence through music, as well as a way for completionists to do their thing. Although the activities themselves may still feel formulaic after a while, especially ones where you're exclusively doing Uncharted-style platforming and rock climbing, at least there has been an effort to dress them up organically as the map expands. As someone generally burnt out on traditionally structured open-world games, I appreciate the way Yotei expresses just enough restraint with its separate zones, while maintaining the impression of a gigantic map. And letting the vibe carry you from one thing to the next doesn't feel at odds, as this is Atsu's path of vengeance that mostly works on her terms. With aesthetic options like the returning Kurosawa mode that turns everything black and white with Japanese audio, or new modes like the Takashi Miike option that ups the blood and gore by 1000%, and the Samurai Champloo-esque Watanabe mode that turns on the lo-fi beats, Ghost of Yotei has several nice touches atop its penchant for spectacle. A predictable but well-executed story takes you through Ghost of Yotei's gorgeous landscapes and satisfying fluid action combat. With a new protagonist in Atsu as a vigilante who does not care about honor in her quest for revenge, you get a stronger lead character and an expanded weapon set that elevates the gameplay principles set by Tsushima. Although the novelty has lost a bit of its sheen, the Kurosawa influence is still strong and used to great effect. So while it may not be transforming open-world games, Ghost of Yotei is a great refinement for the samurai power fantasy. Ghost of Yotei's IGN score? 8 out of 10. Thanks for listening to IGN. My name is Tony Jackson, and for the latest updates on Ghost of Yotei and more, visit us at IGN.com.
Spoken Layer.